Elizabeth's coronation date was chosen based on astrology. January 14th, 1559. The Tower of London. Dr. John Dee bent over a table strewn with charts and celestial diagrams, his quill scratching furiously across parchment. The walls around him were stacked with instruments, manuscripts, and forbidden texts, a library that blurred the line between science and sorcery. At 31, Dee was already a legend. He'd lectured on Euclid in Paris to halls too crowded to hold his audience. He'd designed navigation tools that let English sailors chase horizons no map had yet drawn. But this night, the stars themselves were his subject, and his client was the new Queen of England. Elizabeth had summoned him not for mathematics or astronomy, but for astrology. She wanted him to divine the most auspicious moment for her coronation, the date on which her reign, and perhaps her destiny, would begin. Dee worked with a scholar's precision. He charted the positions of 7 known planets, calculated their aspects, and studied whether their alignments promised fortune or disaster. The moon represented the people. Jupiter ruled kingship. Saturn warned of obstacles. Each needed to fall into harmony, or England's new queen would begin her reign under an unlucky sky. For weeks, Dee compared planetary tables and ancient texts. On January 14th, he reached his conclusion, January 15th, 1559. Jupiter would rise in Aquarius, sign of renewal and intellect. The moon stood in a favorable aspect. Mars's energy pointed outward, toward defense rather than rebellion. The heavens, he believed, smiled on Elizabeth. Elizabeth accepted his counsel. The next morning, she processed from the Tower to Westminster Abbey, through streets lined with banners and flowers. Her robes of purple velvet shimmered in the winter light. St. Edward's crown gleamed with embedded gems and impossible weight. Bishop Owen Oglethorpe performed the coronation, reluctantly, a Catholic presiding over a Protestant queen. The choice of day would prove prophetic. Elizabeth's reign would last 44 years, guiding England from instability to glory. She would face plots, invasions, and betrayal, and endure them all. Whether it was politics or the planets that protected her, no one could say. Dee's influence would linger far beyond that winter morning. He became Elizabeth's advisor on navigation, mathematics, and the occult, a man straddling 2 worlds, reason and magic, science and faith. Historians still debate what shaped the Elizabethan Golden Age, diplomacy, fortune, or destiny. But on January 15th, 1559, beneath a sky calculated by John Dee, a young woman stepped into Westminster Abbey and into legend. The era marked the beginning of British colonialism in the New World. September 26, 1580. Deptford, England. The Golden Hind lay at anchor on the Thames, her hull scarred by storms and cannon fire, her holds heavy with Spanish treasure worth over £600,000, nearly £140 million today. On deck stood Captain Francis Drake, waiting for his queen. Elizabeth I arrived in a gilded barge, flanked by French ambassadors she had invited deliberately. The scene was theater, staged for the world. Drake knelt. The queen took a sword, and for a tense moment, silence fell. Spain had demanded his execution for piracy in the Pacific. Would she appease King Philip II? Instead, Elizabeth handed the sword to the French ambassador and ordered him to knight Drake. He rose as Sir Francis Drake, and with that single act, Elizabeth declared to Europe, England would no longer bow to Spain. It would challenge her on the seas, and soon, in the world beyond them. This moment marked the beginning of something vast. The birth of empire. England's story of exploration had begun nearly a century earlier. In 1497, John Cabot had sailed from Bristol and reached what he thought was Asia. In truth, Newfoundland. His voyage gave England a technical claim to North American lands, though no colonies followed. Spain and Portugal, blessed by papal decree, divided the New World between them. England was an afterthought. Elizabeth changed that. In 1583, Sir Humphrey Gilbert formally claimed Newfoundland for the English crown. His ship sank on the return voyage, but the precedent was set. England would claim lands far beyond its shores. His half-brother, Walter Raleigh, carried the mission forward. In 1584, Raleigh's expedition reached the coast of modern North Carolina. The reports spoke of fertile soil, friendly natives, and opportunity. Raleigh named the new territory Virginia, honoring Elizabeth, the Virgin Queen, and won her full support. A year later, he launched England's first colonial attempt at Roanoke Island. 108 men, soldiers, craftsmen, scientists, built a fragile outpost. Hunger soon replaced ambition. Relations with native tribes broke down, and no gold or passage to the Pacific appeared. When Drake passed by in 1586, returning from raids on Spanish ports, the desperate colonists begged him for rescue. Raleigh tried again in 1587, sending 115 settlers, this time including women and children. Among them was Eleanor Dare, who gave birth to Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the Americas. But when Governor John White returned to England for supplies, war intervened. The Spanish Armada threatened invasion. Every ship was needed at home. When White finally returned in 1590, the colony was gone. The word Croatoan, carved into a post, was the only clue. The fate of the lost colony remains one of history's great mysteries. Despite these failures, Elizabeth's reign had set the pattern. Drake's circumnavigation proved that English ships could roam the world and prey upon Spanish fleets anywhere. English privateers, armed with royal approval, struck Spain's empire where it was richest and weakest: the sea. Their raids weren't just piracy. They were economic warfare. The treasure Drake delivered home financed future expeditions and emboldened investors. Those who funded his voyage received profits of 4,700%, 47 pounds for every pound risked. The crown itself reaped immense reward, strengthening royal finances and prestige. Elizabeth understood the symbolism. A small island kingdom had defied the greatest power on earth, and won. The ceremony aboard the Golden Hind transformed Drake from pirate to hero, and Elizabeth from cautious monarch to architect of empire. In the decades that followed, English ventures expanded. The Virginia colony, founded in 1607, just 4 years after Elizabeth's death, would succeed where Roanoke failed. From there, settlements spread along the Atlantic coast, into the Caribbean, and eventually across the world. The scale of what followed was staggering. By 1920, the British Empire, born of these Elizabethan beginnings, spanned 13.7 million square miles and ruled 412 million people, nearly a quarter of Earth's population. But in 1580, it was still a dream, a vision glimpsed in the glint of a sword and the confidence of a queen. Elizabeth's knighting of Drake wasn't just a reward for his voyage, it was a declaration of identity. England, once isolated and uncertain, now saw itself as a maritime nation, a challenger to Spain and Portugal, a power destined for global reach. The Golden Hind would become a national symbol. Her timbers were preserved at Deptford for decades, visited by generations who came to see where England's destiny had begun. That day on the Thames was more than ceremony. It was prophecy. As Elizabeth stood beneath the fluttering banners, watching the river that would carry her ships across the world, she gave her nation permission to dream beyond its shores, to believe that a small island could command the oceans and shape the centuries to come. The era was a time of great religious upheaval. November 1558. London. Elizabeth Tudor ascended the throne of a kingdom divided by faith. Her first challenge wasn't foreign invasion or famine, it was religion. Her father, Henry VIII, had broken from Rome to marry Anne Boleyn, founding the Church of England. Her half-brother Edward VI pushed Protestant reform. Her half-sister Mary I reversed course, restoring Catholicism with fire, burning nearly 300 Protestants and earning the name Bloody Mary. Now Elizabeth, a Protestant, inherited a nation split in half, each side nursing old wounds. Her answer became the Elizabethan religious settlement. In 1559, Parliament passed the Act of Supremacy, restoring the Church of England and naming Elizabeth its supreme governor, a humbler title than supreme head, which she reserved for Christ alone. The Act of Uniformity required subjects to attend Anglican services or pay fines. But Elizabeth's real genius was pragmatism. "I have no desire to make windows into men's souls," she said. Outward obedience mattered more than private conviction. As long as people attended church and avoided open defiance, she looked the other way. That delicate balance endured until 1570, when Pope Pius V excommunicated her in Regnans in Excelsis, releasing her subjects from loyalty and blessing her assassination. The Ridolfi plot came first in 1571, an Italian banker and English nobles scheming to replace Elizabeth with her Catholic cousin, Mary, Queen of Scots. Her spymaster, Francis Walsingham, uncovered the plan. The Duke of Norfolk was executed. Mary remained imprisoned. The Throckmorton plot of 1583 repeated the pattern. Assassinate Elizabeth, crown Mary, restore Catholicism. Again, Walsingham stopped it. Then came 1586 and the Babington plot, the breaking point. Young noble Anthony Babington conspired to kill Elizabeth. Walsingham intercepted his letters to Mary, even forging one to draw out her consent. The evidence was undeniable. Mary was tried, condemned, and, after Elizabeth's agonizing hesitation, executed in 1587 at Fotheringhay Castle. Beneath her black gown, Mary wore red, the color of martyrdom. It took 3 strokes of the axe. When the headsman lifted her head, her auburn wig came off, revealing gray hair beneath. The act enraged Catholic Europe. Spain's Philip II used it to justify war. The Spanish Armada sailed in 1588, 130 ships meant to destroy Elizabeth and restore Catholic rule. Storms and English fire ships scattered them. England was saved. But peace never lasted long. The Squire plot of 1598 sought to poison Elizabeth's saddle. The Bye plot of 1603 aimed to kidnap her. Each time, Walsingham's network exposed the danger before it reached her. Religious conflict didn't exist only in courts and conspiracies. It lived in households. Catholics worshipped in secret, building hidden chapels and risking death for illegal mass. Puritans demanded the church be purged of all traces of Rome. Religion shaped daily life, fear, and loyalty. Elizabeth's greatest skill wasn't theology, it was balance. She walked the narrow line between fanaticism and anarchy. She demanded public unity while allowing quiet dissent. Her England avoided the bloody religious wars that consumed France and the German states. The Elizabethan settlement didn't resolve the divide, it managed it. But management, not miracle, was what England needed. Through assassination plots, papal decrees, and foreign invasion, Elizabeth endured. Her reign transformed faith from a battlefield into an uneasy peace. And that may have been her greatest act of statecraft, holding the soul of England together long enough for it to survive. It was a golden age of British theatre. December the 26th, 1594. Greenwich Palace. The Great Hall was packed with courtiers and diplomats, the air heavy with candle smoke and anticipation. At the far end stood a wooden stage, raised just for the night. Before Queen Elizabeth, a troupe of actors prepared to perform a new comedy by a 30-year-old playwright from Stratford-upon-Avon, William Shakespeare. The play was a comedy of errors. For Shakespeare and his company, the Lord Chamberlain's men, performing before the Queen wasn't just an honor, it was survival. Royal favor meant financial security. Disfavor could end a career overnight. No one in that hall knew they were witnessing the dawn of what would become the Golden Age of English drama, an era that would define the language itself. When Elizabeth came to power in 1558, English theatre was primitive. Traveling morality plays, religious pageants in village squares, and no permanent playhouses. But London's booming population and newfound stability under Elizabeth created fertile ground for something revolutionary. In 1576, actor James Burbage built the theatre in Shoreditch, the first purpose-built playhouse in England. A year later came The Curtain. These open-air venues held up to 3,000 people and made professional acting a viable trade. In 1599, Shakespeare's company built The Globe, using timbers from Burbage's old playhouse. Its circular design, with groundlings packed in the yard and nobles in covered galleries, became the beating heart of Elizabethan culture. But Shakespeare didn't stand alone. Christopher Marlowe, born the same year, revolutionized English verse with Tamburlaine the Great, introducing blank verse, the rhythm that would become the language of drama. His Dr. Faustus gave English theatre its first tragic anti-hero. Marlowe's life ended violently in a Deptford tavern, stabbed at 29, perhaps the price of his rumored work as a spy. Ben Jonson followed, his biting comedies Volpone and The Alchemist skewering greed and hypocrisy. Thomas Kyd's The Spanish Tragedy invented the revenge play. John Webster's The Duchess of Malfi brought psychological darkness unmatched for a century. Elizabeth herself encouraged this explosion of creativity. She saw theatre as both art and propaganda. History plays glorified England's past. Comedies reflected her court's intrigues. Tragedies warned of overreaching power. Under her patronage, the stage became the voice of the English spirit. By the 1590s, Shakespeare was at his peak. Romeo and Juliet captured the agony of love. A Midsummer Night's Dream blended fantasy and farce. The Merchant of Venice questioned mercy and justice. Henry V celebrated England's unity. And Hamlet, likely written near the end of Elizabeth's reign, explored grief, doubt, and destiny in language that would echo for centuries. The content of these plays reflected their age. History dramas mirrored anxiety over Elizabeth's succession. Comedies examined marriage and gender roles in a patriarchal world. Tragedies wrestled with ambition, betrayal, and fate. Themes as eternal as empire. Language itself became a tool of transformation. English was expanding rapidly, absorbing Latin, French, and Italian. Shakespeare alone coined more than 1,700 new words, from lonely to bedazzled, turning the vernacular of commoners into a language of art. Yet Elizabethan theater was never elitist. It was the people's stage. The poor stood in the open yard, the wealthy sat in galleries, and even the queen sometimes attended. Audiences ate, drank, and shouted at actors. Theater was loud, alive, and democratic. When Elizabeth died in 1603, the moment passed. Her successor, James I, patronized the arts, and Shakespeare continued to write masterpieces. But that precise convergence, royal support, urban growth, linguistic energy, and unmatched genius would never return. That December evening in 1594, as Shakespeare's actors performed before their queen, they did more than entertain. They forged a national identity, proving that English could rival Latin and Greek, that stories from a small island could speak to all humanity. They were not just performing a play. They were creating the future of English literature and the imagination of a nation. Conclusion. March 24th, 1603. Richmond Palace. Queen Elizabeth I lay dying at 69 after a reign that lasted 44 years, 4 months, and 7 days. She had outlived her closest counselors, survived 4 assassination plots, defeated the Spanish Armada, and transformed England from a small European kingdom into a rising global power. In her final hours, she reportedly stood for 15 straight hours, refusing to lie down, convinced that once she did, she would never rise again. When she finally yielded to her attendants and rested, she passed away quietly in the early hours of March 24th. Her legacy was already beyond measure. Under Elizabeth, England had founded its first colonies in the New World, laying the groundwork for an empire that would one day span a quarter of the earth. She had steered her kingdom through the religious turmoil that shattered much of Europe, choosing compromise and stability over dogma. And she had presided over a cultural explosion that gave the world Shakespeare, Marlowe, and the Golden Age of English drama. The date of her coronation, chosen by John Dee through astrology more than 4 decades earlier, seemed almost prophetic. Whether guided by the stars or by fate, the 44 years that followed January 15th, 1559, would transform England forever. When she died, the Tudor dynasty ended with her. Unmarried and childless, Elizabeth left no heir of her own blood. The crown passed peacefully to James VI of Scotland, now James I of England, uniting the 2 kingdoms for the first time. What he inherited was a realm secure, prosperous, and confident, a nation that Elizabeth had reshaped into a future empire. Her influence extended far beyond her lifetime. The colonies she authorized became the foundation of the British Empire. The religious settlement she crafted shaped Anglican Christianity for centuries. The theater she championed established English as one of the world's great literary languages. And the spirit of ambition and exploration she encouraged would drive British expansion long after her death. Elizabeth Tudor had begun her reign as an unlikely queen, female in a man's world, Protestant in a divided realm, and the ruler of a fragile nation overshadowed by continental powers. She ended it as one of history's greatest monarchs, proving that intellect, restraint, and vision could outlast armies and dynasties. As dawn broke on March 24, 1603, the Elizabethan era ended. Yet its legacy, in empire, in faith, in art, and in the imagination of a people, endured across centuries. The Virgin Queen was gone. But the age she created, her golden world of power, poetry, and purpose, would live for.